back to Ox Tools. I'm Tom, and I think it's Monday, so you know what that means. Meatloaf. So before we get started, anybody that's new out there, do me a big favor, smash that subscribe button and the little alert button, and that helps me, and you won't be sorry that you did. So let's check out some cool stuff. This one comes to us from a friend of mine at work, and his name is Jim, and his father died recently, and he was cleaning out his basically his estate and clearing out the property and whatnot, and he found this little souvenir for me. So I know this family fairly well, and Jim and I are good friends, and we work together at the lab. And he thought I might enjoy this piece here, because Jim and I have this kind of a very similar aesthetic sense that we kind of appreciate. But anyway, so the history behind this is this actually belonged to Jim's grandfather. So his grandfather bought it, presumably, and gave it to his dad, or his dad ended up with it, you know, the usual kind of pathway for these kinds of tools. And so Jim says, well, you know, what is it, right? And I looked at it and I go, okay, well, you know, looking at it here, it looks like a caulking tool. So that's used to, there's kind of several different technologies that use that. So you see it in the boat building industry, and you also see it in the plumbing industry, and then there's probably one more that I'll tell you about in a second. But this one's pretty cool, and it just has that patina of use on it, and you know, in particular this severely mushroomed head. So I think these things. Well, we're going to look in the catalog here to see what what length they start out with as, and. So I said, yeah, well, that's probably used to put oakum in or lead packing in, you know, waste sewage pipes. You know, when they used to put cast iron kind of bell and pipe connections, they would pack around that joint with with oakum, and then you would use this tool that can, you know, slide up along the side of the pipe, and you can still get a swing at it and pack that packing in there. And he said, well, they weren't really plumbers. He said, but they used to actually rebuild a lot of big valves. And I said, okay, well, that would work too, right? Where you have, you know, there's packing material around the stems of valves, right? Depending on the kind of service, but you basically wind that around to. There's an annular opening between the stem and the valve body, and you packing in there, and then it has a packing nut that kind of compresses that. But this would be a tool that you would use to kind of drive that down in there. And like I said, this has this great patina. You know, I wouldn't wire brush this or clean it up even. It's just kind of more of a memento and you know, keepsake. Now. You guys probably can't read the writing on here, but this is a Plomb, P-L-O-M-B, Los Angeles tool, okay? And the tool collectors out there will immediately realize what that is. And it was a tool company that was in Los Angeles, started in the 20s or 30s, and was ultimately got into a big fight with Proto, and or became Proto. And I'm not 100% on the history, I'm sure somebody else is. But, you know, they're relatively collectible. So what I told Jim was, I go, oh, hey, I have a Plomb catalog at home. I'll look it up when I get home and see if we can find this in the catalog. Well, guess what? I found it. And so this is the Plomb tools. And, you know, one of the attractions for me for this particular tool company is some of their artwork, and their fonts and things like that are just kind of neat. And you know, they sold basically everything. This is an abbreviated catalog, and fortunately I found the thing, and it was on the very last page of all places here. And here it is. So it is a number 033 3/4, and I can just barely read that on the handle. In fact, the O in the 033 is up under the mushroom part of the head there. Pretty cool. But there it is. It's an offset caulker, and it comes in several different sizes. And this one is the 3/4, which is 1 inch wide. And the overall length of the tool originally was 7 inches. So let's check that out. See what we got, because it ain't 7 inches anymore. So there's how much it's been beat down. You know, at least like about, what is that? That's about a 1/2 inch roughly. You know, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch. It's been smooshed over, right? Pretty cool. But anyway, Jim, thank you very much for bringing me a little keepsake from your dad's estate. I appreciate that. And however tempted I am to grind this mushroom off, I'm going to try not to. And I'll tell you, you know, in the school textbooks, they give you these like dire warnings about grinding that stuff off. Guess what? It's real. Because I've had a piece of that stuff fly off on a funky tool like this, and when you're hitting it, this is hard and the tool's hard, it goes flying, and it's not round and it's not soft, it's sharp and hard, and just what you don't want flying around. And I've been hit with a piece of that, and it's not very pleasant. So if you have tools like that and that you continue to use, but do yourself a favor and grind that stuff off. In fact, you can see how it's normally prepped, right, is it has even a slight taper on it, right, on the smashing end there, on the whaling end. Anyway, Jim, thank you very much. And there's the Plomb. All right, so this one comes to us from a gentleman named Andy Evans, and I guess he went to a machine tool auction, and I guess he scavenged some of the things that were left over from the auction. Let's just put it that way. Or he bought some lots for literally pennies on the dollar, and got some pretty good deals. Anyway, he threw some stuff my way, which is kind of cool, and I appreciate it, Andy. And this is one of the items here. We'll take a quick look at it. And there was a couple other items, but one of them was big and needed to be disassembled, so he's kind of sending it to me in flat rate boxes, you know, kind of piecemeal. So when that thing's ready for prime time, it'll show up on a Meatloaf too. But let's look at this thing here. And what he was pulling my tail a little bit here, because he said, "Oh yeah, I found these weird plates, and I'm using them as bases for my machinist jacks, you know, so I got something, you know, a nice broad base, right?" And he sent me a picture of it, and he knew damn well what it was, right? And what this is, and I've got it greased up here a little bit. This is it's a Pratt & Whitney Toolmakers flat, okay? And so basically what this is a gigantic gauge block, okay, for all intents and purposes. It's ground and lapped flat and parallel to very close limits, and it's used to do small gauge setups on, where you actually ring the gauge blocks directly to the surface, right, and build little stacks to do to make temporary gauges and things like that, where you have to have an extreme precision surface plate, things like that. Now this one is, you know, I checked it under the monochromatic light, and it's not particularly flat anymore. Although it's not too far off. You could lap it in and bring it back pretty easily. And so anyway, Andy, thanks very much for sending that machinist jack plate. That's what we're going to call it. You know, what machinist jack plate comes in a mahogany box with green felt, right? So he sent me that, and then let's set that aside. That's pretty cool. And he also sent me these. these guys here, which are pretty neat. So what these are fringe interpretation diagrams, and they're all the same. It's a copy of the same one. So it shows, you know, when you're reading fringes, what you're actually looking at here. And when you're just starting out, these are very handy to tell what's going on, right? You know, what the line of contact is. Are we concave or convex? Is it falling off on the edge? You know, is it very, very flat or not so flat? You know, things like that. And this is made by the Spitfire Tool Company, which is kind of cool because these guys are one of the few people that made cylindrical lapping machines, which are kind of neat. So I think they made flat lapping machines, but they also made these cylindrical lapping machines, which were two rollers that kind of roll together, and you would lap things like gauge pins and you know, rods that you want to be very, very straight and very, very accurate and round. So anyway, those guys made those machines. Now, Don, and I can't think of his last name right now, Suburban Tool, Don Bailey. Don Bailey, they actually have a Spitfire cylindrical lapping machine. And what they use it for is they use it for lapping the pivots and the pins for their sign plates, which is kind of a perfect use for something like that. So anyway, Andy, thanks for sending this stuff, and I'll show the other thing when we get all the pieces together and I get it cleaned up and working. We'll show that on a Meatloaf because it's kind of an interesting piece too. So stay tuned for that. And thank you very much, Andy. And I'll let you know the next lot of stuff that we're going to show here is a gentleman that's learning, that built his own monochromatic light and bought one of those Russian optical flats and wants to kind of play around with some of this stuff. So I sent him a little package, and I sent him one of these copies of these fringe interpretation patterns, and he loves it. He thinks it's great, and it's going to help him out. So Andy, you're doing a good thing, Andy. So hats off to you. So this next lot of stuff here comes to us from a gentleman that I met over the internet. He reached out to me and was interested in learning about lapping and was kind of searching for you know, an option for a monochromatic light. He bought one of those Russian flats, and then he needed a light. So I sent him some information. I forwarded him some stuff that I have for kind of do-it-yourself mono lights, and sure as heck, he bought some stuff and went out in his garage and cut some plywood and did some stuff and actually made a monolight, and it works. So he sent me some images. He sent me some images of these fringes on this part he had, and you know, yeah, you could see the fringes, but I could also see that the part wasn't very flat. So I said, hey, listen, give me your mailing address, and I'll send you something that's nice and flat that you can look at with your homebrew monolight and your Russian optical flat. Anyway, he did, and I sent it to him. Well, he sent me some stuff back, which was pretty cool. And so he's a retired from the Navy, and he was an active duty SEAL. And you know, he's not doing that anymore. So SEALs are like these super highly motivated dudes, right? And if they don't have something to do, they're going to find something to do, right? So guess what? He's getting into lapping and machine work. So watch out, you guys. These guys are highly motivated. Now, he sent me this, and most of you know what this is. This is a SEAL trident. And it got damaged in shipping a little bit. That's the story here. So I did a little field repair, or first aid, I should say, something like that. And I'm going to cut the splinting off here now and see how the repair looks. It was just cracked. It wasn't separated, but it was just barely hanging on by a thread. Now this is wax string, so it's kind of nice. It doesn't stick to the glue, and looks like we got a good repair there. So anyway, so that's pretty cool. That's one of the items he sent me. I'm going to hang it up on my wall next to my my little artillery badge that I have up there that some people comment on. So we're going to put that off to the side now. And then he sent me a couple bearings and then a little die head. And this is a 1/4 28, and it's got what look like really nice sharp chasers in it. So yeah, this is a geometric. So so you can change these out and do different threads. And I think I have some chasers that fit this size. So that's kind of cool. So thank you very much. A couple of bearings. These are R12s. And R-series bearings, for those guys, the folks that don't know, are inch size bearings. Okay, so let's take one out. So they're inch size instead of metric. And so this is 3/4 ID and 1 5/8 OD. So yes, you can get inch bearings, and R-series bearings are inch, for those folks that didn't know that. And you know, sometimes you want to use those, and other times you don't. But they're kind of handy and they're kind of cheap. McMaster sells them, but these are nice ones. These are Nachis, so those Japanese bearings, those are good. And then the other thing he sent me, which I like, actually, this is probably one of my favorite things in this, and partly because of these stickers on here, right? And once again, this is kind of about the history and the patina and the kind of the what I would call the dings of life, right? The dings and scratches of life, right? And this has it all, right? So it's taken out of service, and here's calibration tags, and then you know here it was part of the metrology local level reference standards. And look at this cool little. It's got you know, some little geometric shapes here for, you know, I guess that's that department's logo or whatever. So anyway, kind of neat. So this has had a good life, and now it's had a hard life. So we're going to see how hard the life that this thing's had. There's the optical flat, right? And you know, at one point, you know, they were using this thing, and it's the B side is concave by 1.7 microinches, and the A side is convex by 4.9 microinches, something like that. And but they use the heck out of this thing. Now it's probably still quite flat, and maybe if we have a spare minute, what we'll do is we'll clean it and put another optical flat on this and put it under the monolight and see what it looks like. It's got some pretty bad chips, but usually this won't affect the out in this area here. What you'll see is some local distortions really nearby by the chips like this. So if you find one of these at a flea market or something like that and it's got some chips, I'd still get it. And when you get a second one that's in better shape, you can check it, and then you can just see where the kind of the bad areas are. So maybe we'll go do that. That'll be kind of fun. So anyway, thank you very much for sending this stuff. That's great, and enjoy your journey into lapping. And now he also asked me to give a little shout out for. There are actually a couple of brothers in New Jersey that have an eBay business, and when he first asked me to do this, I was kind of reluctant because honestly, they're one of my. I've bought a ton of stuff from these guys, and they got really fair pricing, and they get some wonderful stuff. So I was kind of reluctant. I was like, oh dang, this is one of my secret suppliers, right? All right, so I'm gonna let you know what it is. It's Cook Brothers Tools, and I think they go by Cook Tools on eBay. COOK. It may have an E in it, Tools. Anyway, they're in New Jersey, and they'll have a whole bunch of machine tool listings, machinist junk, and their prices are really good. They got a lot of buy it nows, and they've treated me very well over the years. So go check them out. So Cook Tools on eBay. This next one's pretty interesting too. And so, okay, all the woodchucks out there, pay attention, woodchucks, because we're talking to you. So the woodchucks, they're very familiar with these kind of fine laminate, although this isn't a great example, but these very thin laminate birch plywoods, right? Sometimes called Baltic birch or Finnish birch, things like that, right? Where it's very thin layers, tightly compressed, and it's just kind of a nice product, right? It's a really good plywood, right? And you make all kinds of stuff out of it, jigs and fixtures or cabinets and things like that. Well, a friend of mine turned me on to the German equivalent of this, and that's this piece here. And here's a small piece of it here. And we'll take a look at the edge there. You can see the edge. And this material is called Panzerholz. And it's actually bulletproof wood or armored wood. And so they use it's got some weird uses, right? So I've been studying this material for the last week or so because I've been kind of fascinated with it, and I machined some just for fun here to see how it behaves. But because I'd never heard of it before. So basically, it's a phenolic impregnated plywood that they coat with phenolic resin, and then they heat it up, and then they compress it to 1/2 of its original size, right? Which is a pretty good compression. So this stuff's pretty dense, very dense actually. It's lighter than aluminum. In fact, it's lighter than magnesium, but it's kind of almost as strong as aluminum. And the other weird thing about it is, and this is where my friend kind of comes in, is it has some very strange damping qualities, and in particular for acoustic signals. So they use it for, and I'm going to screw this up, different bits and pieces on very frou-frou high-end audiophile type stereo equipment. I don't know if they use it on tone arms or needle carriers or, you know, those kinds of things, or cabinetry for those types of things. But it has this very odd acoustic damping qualities, right, that are desirable in that industry. So he made some stuff out of it, and he's saying, oh yeah, we made that out of Panzerholz. And I go, what? What did you say? And he told me, and then he showed me, he had some scraps left over, and he goes, oh, here, take some. And so I was thinking about using it for, you know, once I saw it, I was thinking about using it for knife scales or something like that, you know, the part of the grip of a knife, right? Because it's okay, it's very sturdy, and it machined basically like aluminum, right? It didn't delaminate or crack or do anything when I was doing all this machining, right? And which was pretty, you know, I just took a cut and it was fine, and that's the finish. I didn't sand it or do anything. So so here's the thing, okay, and there it is. There's the name. So that's a real name. And then this has all the engineering qualities of this particular machine, or excuse me, material. And this particular stuff is this B15, which is this is the most common grade. Then they have Class A, that's, I guess, bulletproof or armor grade or something like that. So they use it for making molds. You know, it's easy to machine and easy to work, right? Relatively. And so they make, you know, low volume run molds and forming dies and things like that out of it. Now, you know, there's basically a metal stamping, right? So you can make a short run die out of it or whatever. There's some that's been machined. Spinning forms, okay. These are bobbins or whatever, something like that. And there's some of the specs, the engineering specs on this: density, braking strength, impact strength, blah 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 blah. Right. So now, before you get all excited, it's pretty hard to get your hands on, unless you live in Germany. So Stefan, if you're watching this, let me know if you can get your hands on this material. Okay, it would be interesting to. I think, you know, you can import it, but you got to import basically, you know, 10 sheets or 100 sheets or something like that. And, you know, now you're talking, you know, kind of multi-thousands of dollars, right? When what you want is a little piece like this, because you want to make something out of it, right? So anyway, some folks out there might be familiar with this material, and if you are familiar with this material and you know some of the, have experience with it and some of its uses, I'd be very interested to hear how you use it and what you use it for and why you use it. And because I'm just learning about it myself, and it's kind of an interesting material. And so trying to think how to apply it in my life and make use of this kind of unique stuff. So Panzerholz. All right, this one comes to us from a gentleman named Ralph, and I'm probably going to screw up his last name, Bomino. So I'm going to stop right there and not try to repronounce that. I think that's how it's pronounced, but I'm not positive. So anyway, Ralph contacted me via email, and he was basically kind of upset that some local machine shops weren't willing to take this job on and help him out. And the story behind it is he's got a couple of sons, and he wants to kind of gift. These are, for those that don't know, these are Miller's Falls wood planes, and you know, I don't know what it's a P3, I guess, but anyway, it's a plane, a wood plane. But he has one here that's the quote-unquote deluxe version, and then he has one that's not the deluxe version. It's the Johnny Homeowner version or whatever. So, and you know, there's some minor differences that I can see in the casting. This casting is thinner. You know, and maybe age difference too, right? It's a little thinner. This is a little different. This is very similar. And then the main difference, and the thing that he wanted to correct, is this is machined, and this is machined for where the frog sits. And the frog is machined correspondingly here, so that it fits in there like so, and then it bears against that quite nicely. Okay, so anyway, and this one is this rough cast here. Okay. And so what we're going to do for Ralph is we're going to measure this one, and then we're going to make this one like this one here. We're going to machine it to the same thickness, and then the same step height from here to here is what we're going to do. And that's about it. It's a pretty straightforward job, so I don't know why these other shops weenied out on him. And I mean, you know, from his description, you know, he gave him plenty of time and was, you know, was willing to pay, et cetera, you know, all these things, right? That, you know, shops that that make money want to hear, right? But they sat on it for a year or something and never got around to it. You're going to see just how easy this job is, right? And why I say those other shops weenied out, because this is like a dog simple job. Okay, so let's take care of these plane bodies for Ralph, and so he can put them together and make them into a couple of nice planes and give them to his boys. All right, so let's do this. Let's try to do this real time here. Let's see if I can do this pretty quick here. So this is the this is the quote unquote good one here. And let's put it in the vise. Make sure that down on the parallels. Okay, and then I should have come up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, using the pre-already machined casting, I'm going to set a datum here. Okay. On that machine surface, I'm going to zero my quill DRO. Okay, so that's a 0 point there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to touch off and see what that difference is. Okay, and then I got 726. I'm going to write that number down so I don't forget it. 726. Okay, that's my offset. So now I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put this is the one that will be machined in here, like so. Okay, and I know that I got to go to 726 on that one. because the datum's the same. It's off the bottom, right? Put that in there. Make sure I'm down. Yes. Okay, let's see where it is in relation. So we're 755, so we got a little ways to go down. And we're going to 726. Alright, that's 726. And we'll come down, and this one's probably a little trickier here. I'll be a little careful in that area. Okay, so it's got about 20 thousandths to go. I got to remember to come up and over. Bozo that a little bit, I think. There's 0. Alright, good. I got a little dingus. It'll be alright. Okay, that's it. Kind of done. So that was really all he needed. It looks a little different. These pads are a little wider. But I kind of want to maintain that relationship. So the thickness from the bottom to the top of that pad should be the same, and then the offset from these little pads to the big pads should be the same. So let's drop the frog in there and see what it looks like. And it actually slides and feels pretty nice, kind of like this one. Okay, all right. Ralph, I think we're done. All right, Ralph. So that was pretty straightforward, and you even get a couple of. So I apologize for that. That's me talking and trying to machine and talk at the same time. So Mr. Bozo came to visit you, but I don't think it's a functional problem. You can tell all your friends that Tom Lipton bozoed your part a little bit. So that's anyway. So I hope that doesn't that bother you too much. So if it does, let me know, and I'll find one of these somewhere for you. So okay. Anyway, I'll put those in the mail back to you, and I hope you enjoy the video. So.